Guys, welcome to Construct Your Life. We got my man, Tim Sweetman, in the house. Hospitality, runs multiple Chick-fil-A's, but more importantly, a man of integrity. You got to jump in. You got to listen to these episodes, part 1 and 2, and y'all enjoy. We'll see you in there.
Constructing your life is about much more than just building a bank account. Each week, join mindset coach Austin Linney as he interviews guests who are constructing their dream lives and impacting the world around them on a daily basis. If you're an entrepreneur or wanting to start a business, or you just want to hear motivating stories of how others have overcome the odds, you are in the right place. And now for your host, Austin Linney.
Guys, he might be an entrepreneur or a Sears model catalog. He looks amazing today, but that's neither here nor there. I digress. Guys, welcome back to the 3-part series. So just so we're clear, guys, you know me, I have no idea what we're going to talk about, but I can catch, baby. I can catch. So part 1 with my man Tim. I'm going to share your intro previous to this. What's the first topic we're talking about, buddy?
Yeah, let's talk about, I think it'd be really cool to share about my inspiration for even considering business. There's a couple of guys in my life that I think are impressive for different reasons, and I'd love to just share kind of who they were and why they were so inspiring to me.
I believe this is my belief before you share their story. I believe that you can't see greatness in others unless you have it in yourself. It's unattainable. Meaning the greatest exercise I've ever heard in my entire life. I call it right now after we get off this because it still changed my entire life. Yoga retreat. My friend told me this story one day when I was going through a rough time. She said, yoga retreat, woman's got 30 people there. She says, I want you to think of 3 people that inspire you. And I want you to think of 10 qualities they have in their life that you would like in yours. I want you to write their names out, and I want you to write the 10 qualities down. She goes, now go back and cross out their name and write your name up top there. Because the only way you could see those qualities in that person if you had them in yourself.
Yes. Oh, that's so true, because, and sometimes I think for a while you have to lean on these individuals and people. I always love the idea of like standing on their shoulders. Like, you know that you have the capability to do it, but you kind of need to lean on them for a little bit of time. And it's like they see it first. Before we started, I was just sharing about Jay. Jay was somebody who saw something in me when I was just a teenager, 12, 13 years old. And, he saw me just kind of in small, tiny leadership things, whether that was at church, when I was over at his house, hanging out with his son, those types of things. And I didn't know exactly what he did till recently when he sold his business. I didn't understand all the elements of it, of like, man, this guy is an absolute killer. He's an incredible leader. What I saw, though, this is what was cool. I think what I learned from Jay is that at his core, this guy was a man of high integrity. He always cared about the clients, the customers, the people around him. He was extremely generous. Every time when I went off to college, I'd come back home, shake his hand, there's $100 bill in my hand. Hey man, how you doing? Hope you're doing well. Jay would always, share some of the same stories over and over again. And he was like kind of the first CEO I think I met and understood that CEOs are just people that kind of have bumper stickers and they say the same things over and over again. And I just would go, Jay, I heard that story already, but I realized that he was so good at telling those stories and he had those principles in his mind and would share them over and over again. I mean, I still say to this day, like 5 minutes can change your life. I remember sitting around a campfire at his house with a bunch of young guys. He's probably 30s, 40s at this time. He's got a bunch of teenage boys there. And he's saying, guys, 5 minutes can change your life. 5 minutes can change your life. And he's saying that from experience and preaching that. And you saw a guy that I remember him at one point telling all of us, hey, I'm praying that I get broken of my pride, which of all people, you would not think this guy is proud or arrogant. And just watching him go through that, the way that he cared for his family, the way that he cared for his wife, the way that he prioritized things, and then was honest and open about his struggles, it's very inspiring. And it got something in my brain to think that this idea of leadership or of business, I got to see a really great example of somebody that was both successful, but they also were just a genuinely great person, and they were able to do it for a long period of time, and they didn't blow up their life. Like, they were actually able to make it to the finish line and to care for their family. Not everything was perfect along the way. And so, Jay was the first one. The second guy was really my mentor, Mike. And Mike is the one. I was 18 years old, and I was working at Chick-fil-A. And I saw Mike. He was the owner of a Chick-fil-A. I saw him as flipping chickens. I didn't really have any concept of what he did or who he was. And I remember as I struggled through little leadership roles and got promoted and was in charge of different things and just dealt with insanity and chaos and craziness. One day sitting down at 18 years old, I can remember the booth. If you've ever been to Chick-fil-A, there's always little booths sitting around. I sat down in this booth with that scratchy surface, and he sat across from me and said, "Tim, I think that you need to be an entrepreneur." Specifically, he wanted me to own a Chick-fil-A. He's like, I can see it in you. And I absolutely rejected it in the moment. It's like, there's absolutely no way. Like, there's no way I can do that. But he had taught me kind of everything when it came to leadership, how to manage people. And the big thing for Mike that he taught me was, I was the kind of person, at least early on, was a little bit brash and would want to give up on people. Mike almost never gave up on people. Almost never. I remember thinking, and even after I left his organization, actually came back later on, years later, but I remember kind of criticizing him when I had left and saying, man, this guy just never will fire anybody. But he always had this framework. Every time we come to him and say, we need to fire somebody, he would go, did we train them properly? And we go, no, we didn't do it. Failure of leadership on your part. I mean, firm failure of leadership on your part. Go back, fix it. Okay. We come back again. We train them properly, Mike. We have all the information here. I can confirm to you that we train them. Did you coach them? Have you figured that out? Have you coached them correctly? No, we haven't done it. No, we don't. No, I mean, we kind of told them a couple things, but no, we didn't really coach them and tell them that they needed to improve or have a plan for that. Failure of leadership. Get back to work. Come back to me. And then last, we come to them again. Mike, we've trained them properly. We've coached them, and they're still failing. He still wouldn't fire him. He goes, Tim, is it a issue of, are they just in the wrong seat? It's a willingness issue, or is it like a performance issue? And so if it was a willingness issue, you go, I get it. You've trained them, you've coached them, but they're not willing to do the job. They're toxic. We need to leave them. But if they are willing to do the job, you've trained them, but they're still failing, maybe we need to figure out a different seat. And man, if you wouldn't give people another opportunity as long as they had the willingness to do that. And I have a good friend of mine, he always talks about, in the way that I've phrased it now is there's the path of pride and the path of humility. And I'll do ride and die with anybody as long as they have that path of humility. It's when they take the path of pride, you're not going to be on the team anymore. You're just not going to be there. And so, I use that with my own team now, and I stand on the shoulders. Like, I'm terminating somebody tomorrow night. A young kid, he's coming in. He doesn't know it's coming, but we have trained him. We've coached him, and he has taken the path of pride time and time again. And it's not he's in the wrong seat or anything like that. And so Mike just taught me that, of giving people an opportunity to be successful and have a framework for how you evaluate individuals. So those were two incredible guys. I got one more guy, and that was Evan.
Hold on.
Oh, please. Yeah, we can stop there.
That might be the most important lesson I've ever heard in 700 podcasts. This guy Mike, I want to shake his hand. He made me uncomfortable in the moment because I've met guys like him. I mean, I really hope that anybody that has a young person in their life takes that last 5 minutes and gives that, look, guys, this is my philosophy in life. If you are willing and you're not in a prideful position and you want to learn, I will coach you. What I will not do is fight your ego.
Mm-hmm.
Can't do it, won't do it, not going to happen. You'll be gone within 2.5 seconds. But if you're comfortable enough to acknowledge where your missteps are, same as mine as a leader, right? Then I will go to bat for you more than anything, because people have gone to bat for me even when I've been rough. Like, dude, you got to understand, like, you come from a restaurant business. Dude, who you're talking to, and I'm not trying to be ridiculous, you're talking to the 1% here, baby. I broke every record that existed in number one wine sales, number one beers. I broke it.
Mm-hmm.
That was me.
Mm-hmm.
But here's the problem. Because I was the cash cow and the workhorse, nobody could tell me shit.
Mm-hmm.
And I look back at the man I am today at 41, and I want to personally shake the hand of all those managers that I tormented. I'm not saying they were great people, all of them, and I'm not saying they were good at their job, but they didn't deserve half the shit they were getting from me. Right?
Mm-hmm.
And, but there was enough people in my life that saw a rawness in me. But I was, you know what? The number one compliment I've got from every business partner, they said, look, even when I was drinking, this was back in the day, they said, Austin has the unique ability to tell him something at 9 o'clock at night on Tuesday, and by 7 a.m. on Wednesday, it's fixed. Austin, this is something I don't like about you. Boom, it's fixed in the morning. But here's the problem. Most of my life, especially through my 20s, these ears weren't open.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and we see that a lot. I mean, and I think Mike,
I'm better than this. I shouldn't be working at a Chick-fil-A. Blah, 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 blah. It's not about the Chick-fil-A. It's about what you're doing inside the business of the Chick-fil-A. Who cares where you work for? Do you know how many guys I pulled out of cell phone stores, fast food restaurants, bartending jobs that are killers?
Yes.
Everybody has an opportunity to give you a job, no matter where you start.
That's right. Absolutely. Absolutely. And if you can see both from the perspective of a employee, if you can embrace the moment and learn about yourself and open up your ears, you can learn so much no matter where you're at. And then I think from a leadership perspective, this is one of those things where I've just learned, I've been given so many opportunities, or I've seen people that there's so many people that I have in high levels of leadership in my organization right now. I probably should have fired like 10 times. And again, this is the difficulty, right, of like navigating sort of that tension of like, okay, is this person toxic or not? Because if they're toxic, and we could talk about that, like I think you do have to get rid of them. There was a lot of that early on. I had to get rid of, I was chopping the snake and trying to get to the head, and it felt like it took forever to get there. But along the way, it's like you had to get to a place. There are still individuals. Again, I think that pride versus humility piece is the differentiator. Like people can be boneheaded and have their ears shut, but they're willing to, if they're willing to listen, if they're willing to go, okay, I will try to fix this.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like I will go as long as I need to go. I mean, we have leaders that have been with us for now, been open for 6 years, and there have been so many ups and downs and moments where, my wife is going, they still work for you? Like they're still there? Like, you're frustrated with them. Why are they still there? And I'm going, because I've seen it in other organizations. A person I could name, I haven't worked for that long, but I could name probably 10, 15, 20 people that had moments of failure, but Mike would always use the phrase fail forward. Like, can we find a way to help them fail forward? not fail and completely go backwards, but fail forward. And that requires two parties. It requires you as a leader to be able to work with that person and to see the potential in them. And it requires the other person to give up their ego. And I think those are those moments, like when you fail, you emerge as a better individual, as a better person. You kind of need to be broken down. I mean, and no better place to do that than restaurants, because the stakes, it feels like the stakes are super high, but they're not quite as high. But the pressure's insane. Yeah,
dude, it's
just food.
It's a plate of chicken tenders, but yet it feels like you're in the fucking Super Bowl, right?
Yes,
and that's what is the greatness of a moment. Like, perfect example is like a barista job, in my opinion, could get you prepared for so much in life, because let's break it down for a second. It's the time of the day when people are the grumpiest. Number one. Anything that people do at their house, they do 50% of the time, they've got opinions about. Number two. And number three, it's a high-priced job. So I'm going to look at a barista and go, that's somebody, right? My fiance was a barista. She sees everything. She knows service-wise, she notices every little detail. She notices people's behavior. That has taught her so much. Like, people ask me, and I use myself as an example. I was just on a call today to sell an over $100 million business. Okay. It's asinine. It's ridiculous that I'm on that call. All that stuff. Right. But because I spent 20 years in hospitality, I can take that call and no pressure whatsoever, because I've talked to millions of people in different walks of life.
Yeah.
That has got me where you see today. This is my framework for everything. And that's why I seek out other restaurant people, because their communication skills are top notch.
Yeah, you never know what kind of person is coming in or what kind of circumstance that they're in. And I think I've had milkshakes thrown at me. I've had people try to fight me. I mean, one of my greatest moments, this is kind of a funny story, but I'm sure any former restaurant employee or current restaurant employee's got 1,000 stories. In high school, I used to go home and my parents would be like, "What stories you have tonight?" And it turns you into a storyteller. But I remember there was a moment I was working up front as a young manager, 17 years old, and I was always pretty proud of myself, because I would, I felt like I was like top dog. And the most humbling, awful experience. This couple comes up. They're probably in their 20s, late 20s or something like that. And the girl hands me her drink, and I go, and it's got the cup and the straw and all that stuff too. And she hands it to me, and I go, "Can you take your top off, please?" Holding the cup out. That guy went ballistic on me. Now, context for me, I grew up homeschooled, K through 12. Okay. I have no idea for a good 30 seconds why this guy's cursing and screaming at me. No clue. And then it finally dawns on me, and my face has never been more red in my entire life. I mean, never been more embarrassed. And I got the lid. And he's like, he was screaming, cursing, everything too, And so you learn that people can be set off at any moment. You learn how to navigate crazy conversations. I've done now thousands of interviews, and you interview people of all walks of life at any given moment. I mean, I was in an interview a couple weeks ago, and finally just something didn't seem right. And I started asking more questions, and finally the kid lifts up his pant leg and shows me, his little ankle bracelet, and then he's on house arrest. And I go, I had no idea. And so, and then I look it up later, and it was for like armed robbery, and he is, assaulted and almost killed somebody. And so I'm like, oh gosh, should I get, then you're afraid, because you're like, I don't know if I should reject him. And it's crazy things like that. And I learned from Mike too. I mean, he went through crazy experiences. I mean, he had his tire slashed multiple times. He had people threaten his family, over all kinds of crazy things, horrible letters. I've gone through that as well. I've been, whether it's lawsuits, whether it's, false accusations, whether it's private investigators, people are just crazy. And, you have to learn how to approach and be in situations where at any given moment, I mean, you could be talking with somebody from kind of backwoods, West Virginia, old school, hard, tough dudes. And the next moment you're talking with somebody that just drove up their Mercedes and is, high finance, and they want to have a great experience. And so that's one of the interesting things that we've tried to figure out in my business is like, okay, how do you, there's so many different people. How do you scale that? How do you create almost a Ritz Carlton experience for somebody who doesn't even know what that means? Never even, that's like outside of their, they have no clue.
This is what you and I talked. I think this is what you and I talked about when we first connected with something like this. I want to save this, and we're going to wrap up this thing right here, guys. Mentors, people that touch you when you're young. Pardon me, touch you. See, here I go again. That's not what I meant. That's not what I meant, everybody. That's not what I meant. I apologize. I meant inspire you to inspire you to be better. So okay. All right. See, here's the deal. Man. I just leave it in there because it's funny. It's funny. Listen, people that inspire you to be leaders are very important. I really hope they're not touching you. I'm going to take that back. I'm going to walk that back. So I hope everyone got some value from this. And don't take your top off. All right.
Yeah.
See you. Guys, let me take a minute to tell you about my buddies over at Lead Hub, Ben and Aaron, the best humans I know. Not only are they amazing at marketing for trade companies, but Ben started his HVAC company in his garage, sold it for multi-million dollars. So when this guy talks, I listen. When we took over Dietz Mechanical, we had 22 reviews in 22 years. In 7 short months, we went from 22 reviews to 107. We went from a 4.2 to a 4.7. We tripled our Facebook presence and we tripled our calls. If you're an HVAC, plumbing, electric, landscaping company, and you're looking for a no BS approach to marketing, you're looking for people who have done it before, you got to go to leadhub.net